His wife laughed while signing the divorce papers until the judge reads his net worth. "I'm going to destroy you in court, Caleb. Half of everything you've built will be mine." Those were the last words Lydia Armstrong whispered before winking at her divorce attorney and signing the papers with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. She had no idea the man across from her had already orchestrated the most brilliant financial chess move in divorce court history. What happened next will challenge everything you thought you knew about marriage, betrayal, and revenge. Viewers, have you ever trusted someone so completely that their betrayal felt like a punch to the chest? How would you handle it? Tell me in the comments. The Denver skyline glowed in gold and steel beyond the wide hotel window, but Caleb Armstrong hardly noticed. His laptop hummed on the desk, screen full of quarterly reports. Another long day of meetings with potential investors for his shopping complex project had finally ended. If all went well, the deal could be worth hundreds of millions. At 41, Caleb had built himself into one of Tennessee's most respected entrepreneurs. From construction contracts to real estate developments and tech ventures, his empire stretched across 3 states. Yet in the quiet of the suite, away from boardrooms and bankers, he was still a man who missed home. He loosened his tie, rubbed his tired eyes, and picked up his phone. The one routine that never changed, no matter where work took him: calling his wife Lydia. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright. "Caleb, perfect timing. I just got home from dinner with Jenny." "How was it?" He settled into the leather chair, loosening his tie. "Did you two solve all the world's problems?" Lydia laughed, that musical sound that had captured his heart 5 years ago at a Nashville charity gala. "Just the usual gossip about who's dating who in our circle. Nothing too scandalous. How are the Colorado meetings going?" "Better than I hoped. The investors are interested in the shopping complex deal." "That's wonderful, honey. I'm so proud of how hard you work." Her voice carried that familiar warmth that made him miss home even more. "When will you be back?" "I'll be back Friday," Caleb said finally. "Longer than we planned, but these investors move slow." "I understand completely. Just missing my husband, that's all." They talked for another few minutes about her day, his meetings, plans for the weekend. Normal married couple conversation. When they said their goodbyes, Caleb pressed the end call button and set his phone down. He leaned back in the leather chair, letting the silence of the room settle. Then he noticed it, the screen still glowing. The call hadn't ended. He reached for it but froze when Lydia's voice came again. Only now it was different, colder, stripped of warmth. "Travis, I already talked to my lawyer," she said. "The divorce will be ready soon. He assured me I'll get 50% of Caleb's assets. I'll claim emotional abuse. The judge will believe me." The name landed like a hammer. Travis. A man's voice followed, smooth and low, close to the microphone. "Then we can finally be together. Live our dream life." Caleb's grip on the chair arms tightened until the leather creaked. "It hasn't been easy enduring him these years," Lydia continued, venom sliding into her words. "But for us, baby, I can do anything. He's stingy to the bone. I don't even know his full net worth except the money in his personal accounts, which is barely $100,000. Still, by my calculation, he's worth over $800 million. The man chuckled darkly. 5 years of playing perfect wife, worth the wait. "More than worth it," Lydia said, her tone softening into a conspirator's purr. "This Bellmead mansion, his company, the investment properties, half of it becomes mine once I file. Tennessee law favors wives, especially when there's proof of neglect." "And Caleb, did he suspect anything?" Travis asked. "Not a thing. He's too busy chasing projects and investors, too trusting to question me." Caleb's pulse pounded in his ears. His phone automatically recorded every call, a safeguard from years of business disputes. Now, every word, her betrayal, her scheme, was being preserved. "The timing is perfect," Travis said. "We liquidate, split, disappear somewhere warm. Caribbean, maybe. New names, new lives." "I can already taste it," Lydia whispered. No more pretending to care about building codes and construction dinners. No more playing the devoted wife. Just you, me, and $400 million. Armstrong has heard enough, he ended the call. Silence returned, heavier than stone. Caleb sat motionless, staring at the city lights beyond the glass. His world hadn't cracked, it had shattered. 5 years of marriage reduced to theater, every touch and smile rehearsed for this moment. This wasn't an affair. It wasn't even betrayal in the ordinary sense. It was a heist, a long con written into his life from the beginning. Yet as fury swelled, clarity pushed through. She thought she knew the game. She thought the courts, the law, and his own trust in her would be her weapons. But what Lydia Harper Armstrong had never understood was that Caleb had prepared for betrayal long before she arrived in his world. The hotel room in Denver felt smaller now, the shadows thicker. Caleb Armstrong sat frozen after the line went dead, the weight of Lydia's words replaying in his head. Her voice, her lovers, their entire conspiracy, all preserved by the recorder in his phone. He didn't need another hour in this city. The deal could wait. His marriage was ash, but his fortune would not be. He opened his laptop, pulled up the airline portal, and cut his stay short. First flight to Nashville. No delays. With a steady hand, he scrolled through his contacts and pressed the number he trusted most. The line rang twice before Gerald Monroe's gravelly voice answered. "Caleb? Do you know what time it is?" "I do," Caleb said, his voice firm. "I'll be in your office tomorrow. It's very urgent." The weight in Caleb's tone cut through any grogginess. Gerald had represented him for over a decade, through mergers, acquisitions, and disputes worth millions. He didn't need details to recognize this was different. "I'll clear the schedule and wait for you," Gerald said simply. Caleb ended the call. There was nothing else to say. By dawn the next morning, his plane descended into Nashville. He carried only a slim briefcase. The Uber he'd ordered slid away from the curb, city streets rushing by as his mind worked through each layer of betrayal. Lydia's smile at the gala years ago, her interest in his work schedules, the insistence on independence in finances. Each puzzle piece snapped cruelly into place. When the car stopped in front of Gerald's brick office building, Caleb stepped out and walked inside. The receptionist barely glanced up. Gerald was already waiting. The attorney's dark suit was immaculate, his silver hair combed neatly back. He gestured Caleb in, shut the door, and sat. Caleb set his phone on the desk and pressed play. Lydia's voice filled the office, sharp, venomous. "Travis, I already talked to my lawyer. The divorce will be ready soon. He assured me I'll get 50% of Caleb's assets. I'll play the victim and claim emotional abuse in court." Then the man's voice followed, smooth, confident, careless. "Then we can finally be together, live our dream life." The recording played to the end, every word heavy as lead. Silence settled when it finished. Gerald leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, eyes hard. "This isn't adultery, Caleb. This is conspiracy, fraud, deliberate and calculated." He picked up his office phone and pressed a direct line. "Marcus, it's Gerald. I need you here this morning." Gerald opened a drawer and pulled out a thick file. "There's something else. Lydia doesn't know it, but your empire is already beyond her reach." Caleb's jaw tightened. "The trust." "Exactly. You remember." And with that word, a memory returned unbidden. The farmhouse porch in Franklin 10 years earlier. His Uncle Howard, once proud and broad-shouldered, sat slumped in a chair, eyes hollow. The farm was gone, the machinery repossessed, the savings drained. Divorce had taken everything. "They took it all, Caleb," the old man had whispered. 40 years of sweat gone in months. Courts don't care how hard you worked. They only care about paper. Protect yourself before you give your heart. That lesson had branded itself into Caleb's mind. With Gerald's help, he had acted before Lydia ever entered his life. Every company's share, every deed, every investment had been placed in an irrevocable trust, untouchable by divorce. What remained in his name was modest, under 100,000, a checking account, a car, a few personal items. Lydia thought she was reaching for an empire. In truth, she was reaching for scraps. "Your uncle's misery is your saving grace," Gerald said quietly. "She can claw at the edges, but the core is locked down." Caleb exhaled, steady. "Then let her try." Gerald's office door closed behind him, the plan already in motion. The recording was secured, Marcus Webb would begin the investigation, and Caleb's empire was shielded by the trust. All that was left was to play his role. In the back of the Uber, Caleb scrolled to Lydia's number and pressed call. She answered on the first ring. "Honey, how are you doing today?" "I'm in town now," he said, his tone warm, steady. "Meetings wrapped earlier than planned. I'll join you at home soon. I've missed you so much." Her delighted gasp sounded genuine, but Caleb heard it now for what it was. Performance. "Oh, honey, that's the best surprise. I'll get everything ready." "I'm on my way," he said softly, then ended the call. When the Uber turned onto Belmead Boulevard, the white columns of his house rose against the autumn sky. Lydia was already waiting at the door, wrapped in a cream sweater, her smile glowing, arms outstretched. She kissed his cheek with practiced tenderness. "Welcome home," she whispered. "I've missed you too." Caleb kissed her back, his mask flawless. Behind it, the countdown had already begun. 3 days later, Caleb sat once again in Gerald Monroe's downtown office. The blinds were drawn halfway, slicing sunlight into narrow stripes across the polished mahogany desk. Between them lay a manila folder, fat with documents, photographs, and notes scribbled in Marcus Webb's tight, deliberate handwriting. Gerald didn't waste words. He pushed the folder forward. Marcus worked fast. What he uncovered paints a clear picture. And Caleb, this man your wife calls Travis Cole? His real name is Thomas Brennan. Caleb opened the folder. The first photo stared back at him. Brennan at a Nashville coffee shop, lean face angled toward Lydia, a smile curled with confidence. The caption Marcus had typed beneath it read, "Thomas Brennan, multiple aliases, active con artist, 10+ years of operation." "He's been running the same scheme for a decade," Gerald said. "And it's not about women falling in love with him. He recruits them, grooms them, places them in the lives of wealthy men. They marry, play the role, file for divorce, and walk away with settlements Brennan funnels into offshore accounts. He discards the women after the job is done. 3 confirmed cases so far. There may be more." Caleb turned the page. The first file was stamped with a Florida court seal. Case 1, Vanessa Price, Jacksonville, 2014. A cashier from a struggling family, Brennan promised her a life she'd never known. Within a year, she was married to a car dealership owner nearly 20 years her senior. Divorce followed 18 months later with claims of emotional neglect. Settlement, $2.3 million. Within months, bank transfers routed funds through shell companies Marcus had traced back to Brennan. Vanessa herself disappeared soon after. The next tab revealed a woman with auburn hair, smiling in an old photograph. Case 2, Melissa Grant, Houston, 2017. Once a receptionist at a law firm, she was spotted by Brennan at a networking mixer. He coached her, built her confidence, and introduced her to a real estate developer. A whirlwind romance, a lavish wedding, then a messy divorce. Settlement, $5 million. Melissa never saw a cent of it beyond the initial transfer. Brennan drained accounts through an offshore conduit. Marcus's note, currently working as a waitress outside Dallas, filed 2 lawsuits against Brennan under different names, both dismissed for lack of evidence. The final tab hit harder. Case 3, Rachel Green, Charlotte, 2020. She'd been a single mother working double shifts at a bar when Brennan found her. He sold her a dream of partnership, wealth, security. She married a tech entrepreneur Brennan had identified. The divorce played out like a script. Allegations of verbal abuse, claims of financial control. Settlement, $3.8 million. Within 6 months, Rachel was abandoned, her accounts drained. Marcus's last entry, attempted suicide, 2022. Survived. Currently in therapy, estranged from family. Caleb shut the folder, fists clenched. The air in the office felt heavier. So Lydia wasn't just unfaithful, she was recruited. Gerald's face was carved in granite. From the beginning, Brennan spotted you at that charity gala in 2019. He studied your habits, your philanthropic interests, your wealth. Lydia didn't catch your eye by accident. He placed her there, polished her, guided her, groomed her into your life. 5 years of pretending to be your partner, all while running Brennan's playbook. Caleb's mind spun back through those early days. The gala lights, Lydia's graceful laugh, her ease with the small talk of Nashville's elite. It hadn't been fate or chemistry. It had been choreography. Gerald tapped the folder. Marcus verified the calls. Lydia's phone logs show frequent contact with Brennan over the last 5 years. Burner phones, odd hours, locations that overlap with hotel check-ins. Caleb leaned back, absorbing it. She knew exactly what she was doing. Willing accomplice, Gerald confirmed. Not a victim. The recording proves intent. This file proves pattern. Now it's about timing. We let her think she's in control until she moves openly. The more confident she feels, the more evidence we gather. Caleb said nothing for a long while. His uncle's voice echoed in his head. Protect yourself before you give your heart. He had, and it was saving him now. But it didn't soften the betrayal. Lydia hadn't stumbled into an affair. She'd been planted like a seed in soil Brennan had chosen, watered with 5 years of lies waiting for the harvest. Gerald slid the file back across the desk. Marcus will continue digging. Phone subpoenas, financial subpoenas, license plate reads, public sightings. No shortcuts. Brennan thinks he's rehearsing the same play. He doesn't know the curtain's already lifting. Caleb stood, buttoned his jacket. The rage inside him had cooled into precision. This wasn't about emotion anymore. It was about strategy, patience, and letting Brennan hang himself with his own rope. As Caleb stepped out into the late afternoon, his phone buzzed. A message from Lydia lit up the screen. Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll make that pasta you love. He stared at it, his face unreadable. To her, it was another layer of performance, playing the loving wife while planning to gut him in court. To him, it was one more line in a script that was about to collapse. He typed back, looking forward to it, honey. Pocketing the phone, Caleb walked toward his car. 10 years of Brennan's pattern, 3 ruined women, millions stolen. It ended here. Lydia thought she was writing the next act of her dream life. She was actually setting the stage for her downfall. That evening, the Belmead mansion glowed with warmth. Candles flickered along the dining table. Crystal glasses caught the light, and the scent of garlic and herbs filled the air. Lydia had gone all out. She stood in the kitchen when Caleb walked in, dressed in the black cocktail dress he'd bought her for their anniversary, her smile wide and radiant. Perfect timing, she said, smoothing her hair. I made your favorite, linguine with clam sauce. Caleb leaned down to kiss her cheek, his expression soft. Smells incredible. She beamed, her eyes glittering. To anyone else, she was the picture of a devoted wife. To Caleb, she was a seasoned actress stepping onto her stage. They sat, clinking glasses, Lydia chattering about her day, her yoga class, a new boutique opening. Caleb ate slowly, nodding, responding in the right places, his mask flawless. Inside, though, he felt none of it. He heard only her voice on that recording. I'll play the victim. I'll claim emotional abuse in court. When the plates were cleared, Lydia slipped away for a moment and returned with a manila envelope. She placed it carefully on the polished mahogany table, sliding it toward him with perfectly measured sorrow. Caleb, she began, her voice soft, practiced. I've been thinking a lot about us lately. He lifted his eyes, calm. Have you? Yes. She reached for his hand, her touch warm, calculated. We've grown apart. We've become different people. I don't want us to keep hurting each other. She nudged the envelope closer. I think it's time we face reality. These are divorce papers. Caleb looked at the envelope but didn't touch it. Divorce papers, he repeated, as though tasting the words. I don't enjoy this marriage anymore. Lydia continued, voice trembling just enough to sound sincere. You're always working, always traveling. I feel like a stranger in my own home. She blinked quickly, dabbing her eye with a tissue she'd planted on the table earlier. I think it's best if we make a clean break. Sign these and we can both move on. Caleb leaned back, hands folded loosely in his lap. And what exactly are you asking for? She drew a slow breath, summoning courage like an actress hitting her cue. Half of everything. Tennessee law is clear about marital property. Tennessee law is clear about marital property. I gave 5 years of my life to this marriage. I deserve 50% of what we built together. What we built together, Caleb echoed, his tone even. Yes. She softened her expression, playing the wounded partner now. I don't want to drag this through court. I don't want ugly headlines. Think about your business reputation. Just sign, Caleb. Let's end this quietly. He tapped the envelope with one finger. You've done your homework. Her lips curved in a small, sympathetic smile. I consulted people, I know my rights. I'm not trying to be greedy and just fair. Fair, he repeated, letting the word hang between them. She leaned forward, squeezing his hand again. We can both start fresh. I'll always care about you, but this marriage has run its course. We deserve happiness, even if it's not together. Caleb studied her face, memorizing every line of her performance. 5 years of lies had polished her into a master manipulator. She looked genuine, sounded heartbroken, but he could still hear the echo of her voice on the recording. We can finally be together and live our dream life. I can already taste the freedom. Just you, me, and $400 million. He pushed the envelope back across the table. We'll meet in court. For a fraction of a second, her mask cracked. Shock flashed across her face, quickly replaced by irritation. Court? Caleb, why would you want that? The fees, the publicity. It will ruin your reputation. I'm giving you a chance to handle this privately. No. Her voice sharpened. Don't be stubborn. This is the clean way out. Caleb rose from his chair, his movements deliberate. The clean way, he said evenly, isn't on this table. Lydia stood too, her chair scraping against the hardwood. Panic flickered in her eyes now, though she masked it with anger. Fine. If you want to play hardball, I will destroy you in court. Half of everything you own will be mine. I know things, Caleb, about your business practices, about the way you structure your accounts. The courts don't like men who hide assets from their wives. There it was, the threat, the blade she thought she held. Caleb looked at her calmly. Are you threatening me? I'm protecting myself, she snapped. Just like you've been protecting yourself all these years. He turned, walking toward the staircase. We'll see each other in court. Behind him, her voice dropped into a furious whisper, her words hissing into the phone she thought he couldn't hear. Travis, we have a problem, he won't sign. Caleb didn't pause, didn't flinch. He kept walking, his face a mask of composure. Upstairs, the walls of their home were as silent as tombstones. Downstairs, Lydia's carefully rehearsed performance was already unraveling. The Davidson County Courthouse in Nashville was electric that October morning. The gallery was packed, curious onlookers, business reporters, and a handful of attorneys who wanted front-row seats to one of the city's biggest divorce cases in years. At the respondents' table, Caleb Armstrong sat in a dark suit, quiet, unreadable. Beside him, his attorney Gerald Monroe flipped calmly through a binder, posture steady. Across the aisle, Lydia Harper Armstrong glowed with confidence. Her navy blue suit was tailored to perfection, pearls at her throat, a radiant smile on her lips. Today, she believed, was the day she claimed half a fortune. Behind her, Thomas Brennan, Travis to her in whispered calls, lounged in the gallery. His cool smirk told the story. He expected to watch Caleb stripped of hundreds of millions before lunch. Judge Harold Grayson, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, entered, gavel striking once. "This court is in session. Clerk, call the case." The clerk stood. Case number 23-4-71. Lydia Harper Armstrong versus Caleb Armstrong. Petition for dissolution of marriage and division of marital assets. "Mr. Mills," the judge said, nodding toward Lydia's attorney, "you may proceed." Mills rose confidently. "Your Honor, my client has endured 5 years of emotional neglect and financial control. Mr. Armstrong built an empire while Mrs. Armstrong sacrificed her well-being to maintain their home. Under Tennessee law, she is entitled to 50% of marital property. By our estimate, Mr. Armstrong's holdings exceed $800 million. We ask this court to grant Mrs. Armstrong her rightful share, $400 million, along with appropriate spousal support." As he finished, Lydia took a pen and signed a financial declaration her attorney slid across the table. She smiled as she handed it to the clerk, the same smile she had worn when she rehearsed this moment with Brennan. Judge Grayson turned. "Mr. Monroe, your response?" Gerald stood, his voice calm, but carrying. "Your Honor, my colleague paints a compelling picture, but not an accurate one. Nearly 2 years before this marriage, Mr. Armstrong established an irrevocable trust. Into it went his construction company, his real estate portfolio, his investment accounts. Under Tennessee law, those assets are not marital property." He set thick binders of notarized documents on the bench. "The only assets Mr. Armstrong personally owns today are liquid funds totaling $50,480. Mrs. Armstrong is entitled to half, $25,240. The gallery erupted in whispers. Lydia's confident smile faltered. Judge Grayson read through the filings carefully, then looked up. "The trust is valid. The court rules that all trust assets are excluded. Mrs. Armstrong's award is limited to half of her husband's liquid personal holdings, $25,240. The gavel came down lightly. "No!" Lydia shot to her feet, face blazing red. "This is a trick. He's worth hundreds of millions. He hid it all in that trust to cheat me." "Mrs. Armstrong, sit down," the judge ordered. "The ruling stands." Her legs buckled as she collapsed back into her chair, staring at Brennan. His smirk wavered for the first time. Gerald's tone remained steady. "Your Honor, while the civil matter of marital property is now resolved, there is another matter before the court. 5 days ago, I referred evidence to federal authorities. Evidence of conspiracy and interstate fraud involving Mrs. Armstrong and Thomas Brennan, seated in the gallery." Lydia whipped her head toward Gerald, eyes wide. "What?" At that moment, the courtroom doors opened. 2 men in dark suits entered, badges clipped to their belts. The gallery hushed instantly as the taller of the two spoke. "Special Agent Richard Klein, Federal Bureau of Investigation. By order of the U.S. District Court, we have arrest warrants for Lydia Harper Armstrong and Thomas Brennan on charges of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, interstate financial crimes, and attempted fraud on this court." The gallery gasped. Lydia froze, eyes darting between Caleb, Gerald, and the agents. "This isn't real. You can't—" But the FBI agent was already reading her rights as a bailiff snapped handcuffs around her wrists. She struggled, sobbing now, her voice cracking. "No, I'm his wife. I deserve half. You can't take this from me." The agent's voice was firm. "Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say—" In the gallery, Brennan tried to stand quietly, inching toward the aisle, but the second agent intercepted him. "Thomas Brennan, a.k.a. Travis Cole, you're under arrest." The cuffs clicked around his wrists, and his smirk collapsed into pure hatred as he locked eyes with Caleb. Judge Grayson struck his gavel. "Order. This court will not be used as a stage for fraud. The divorce property division is concluded. The criminal matters are out of this court's hands and now rest with federal authorities." The courtroom buzzed with shock. Reporters scribbled furiously. Lydia sobbed as the agents led her out. Brennan kept his head down, jaw tight. The predator finally cornered after a decade of schemes. Caleb remained seated, expression calm, as though the outcome had never been in doubt. Beside him, Gerald closed the binder softly, the faintest trace of satisfaction on his face. When the judge adjourned and the gavel's echo faded, Caleb stood and walked out into the autumn sunlight. Uncle Howard's words came back like scripture. Protect it before you give your heart. For the first time in weeks, Caleb Armstrong breathed freely. His empire was safe. The betrayal had been exposed, and the predators who thought they had mapped out his ruin were on their way to federal custody. 2 months later, the heavy oak doors of Courtroom 5B creaked shut as U.S. Marshals led Lydia Harper and Thomas Brennan to the defense table. Chains rattled at their wrists and ankles. Both wore the same khaki uniforms of federal custody, but only Brennan still tried to mask himself with arrogance. Lydia's once sculpted composure had collapsed. Her face was pale, lips trembling as she stared down at the polished floor. The clerk read the case aloud. United States versus Lydia Harper and Thomas Brennan. Sentencing hearing. Judge Samuel D. Harper adjusted his glasses and signaled for the government to proceed. Assistant U.S. Attorney Rachel Cortez rose, her voice steady and sharp. Your Honor, the jury's verdict has already spoken. Today is about consequences. The evidence proved beyond doubt that these two defendants conspired to defraud, deceive, and weaponize marriage for financial gain. Mr. Brennan orchestrated the scheme across state lines, leaving broken families and financial ruin in his wake. Ms. Harper became a knowing accomplice, using her position as a spouse to advance the con. The law demands accountability. She stepped aside. Special Agent Richard Klein of the FBI handed the judge a stack of victim impact statements. The courtroom was so quiet that every rustle of paper felt like thunder. When Brennan was asked if he wished to speak, he smirked, his voice dripping contempt. You can lock me up, but you'll never erase me. There's always someone willing to play the game. The gallery murmured in disgust. Judge Harper struck his gavel once. Mr. Brennan, your arrogance is noted. Sit down. Lydia's attorney nudged her to speak. She rose, shoulders slumped. I thought I was in love. I thought Travis wanted a life with me. I made terrible mistakes. I ask for mercy. Her words dissolved into sobs. The judge waited, then spoke firmly. Ms. Harper, you were not manipulated. You were a willing participant. The recordings showed calculation, not confusion. The emails revealed planning, not desperation. You betrayed your husband, this court, and the law. For that, you will serve 12 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised release. Lydia collapsed into her chair, tears streaking her cheeks as marshals steadied her. The judge turned to Brennan, his voice iron. Mr. Brennan, your crimes are deeper still. You cultivated false identities, recruited women as weapons, and exploited the courts for nearly a decade. You left families ruined and lives destroyed. You stand before this bench not as a clever schemer but as a predator. For orchestrating this conspiracy, you will serve 25 years in federal prison without parole. You will also pay restitution of $18.4 million to your victims. The gavel struck, final and sharp. This hearing is concluded. Marshals stepped forward immediately. Lydia's sobs echoed as they lifted her to her feet, chains clattering against the courtroom tiles. Brennan locked eyes with Caleb across the aisle, his smirk gone, replaced by a venomous glare. This isn't over, he muttered, just loud enough to carry. Caleb didn't move. He sat with steady composure, hands folded in his lap as the two were led through the side door toward holding cells. Outside, reporters pressed against barricades, shouting questions as courthouse bells struck noon. Caleb exited with Gerald Monroe at his side, ignoring the camera's flash. For the first time in months, his stride was unhurried. The weight of betrayal had been replaced by the solidity of justice. Viewers, betrayal cuts deeper than any blade. But justice always finds its way. What would you have done if you were Caleb? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more interesting and true-to-life stories.